All right, get this presentation going, and I always have to hide my face because I don't want to stare at myself while I'm giving this presentation. All right, can everybody see this? Just one person say yes, please.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. I can't see the chat, so if someone has a question and they put it in the chat, can one of y'all just let me know? I don't want to steamroll any good feedback that I'm getting. I love participation. All right, hello and welcome to my talk on systems thinking. We're going to talk about what it is and why nurses need it. And I'm assuming that everyone here is a nursing student or already a nurse. If you're another type of healthcare professional, you are also welcome in this talk. It really all applies. So let me introduce myself. My name is Claire Phillips. I'm a patient care supervisor currently in an emergency department in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. I'm also a Doctor of Nursing Practice student in my final year, thank the Lord, in Health Innovation and Leadership at the University of Minnesota. And I am, in my free time, when I have a little bit of that, I'm a digital media educator in systems thinking and change making through my organization that I founded, Nursing the System. I wear a lot of hats in my day-to-day, and so that's why I call myself a systems nurse. It just sums it up nicely. Okay, so I want us to just take a breath and think, why do you want to become a nurse? And if you're already a nurse, why did you want to become a nurse? You don't have to tell me, but just think to yourself. Usually when I ask this question of my clients and my staff, this is the answer that I get: to touch people's lives. And as nurses, we do touch people's lives, and that's fantastic. But I would say a lot of the time we experience frustration in our job. And that's usually because systems are getting in the way. Systems are keeping us from giving people the care that we think that they deserve, or the quality of care that we think that they deserve. But as much as systems frustrate us, we can't ignore them. And that's because systems touch people's lives more than you or I as individual nurses ever could. And so with that, our duty as nurses is to not ignore systems, but to lean into changing them, to make them more helpful than harmful. Systems work is nursing work. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So what is a system? Let's all get on the same page. We hear a lot of talk, especially in social media in 2021, down with the system, burn it down. Let's have a march. Okay, so a system is an interconnected set of elements, coherently organized in a way that achieves something. Okay, if you're like, what? Let me say it a different way. A system is a group of people or things that are working together to achieve a common purpose. Systems are all around us at every scale imaginable, both human-made and nature-made. So as nursing students, you understand that the human body is a system. And then within the human body, you have the cardiovascular system. And within that system, you have the heart. And within the heart, we have cardiac cells. And a cell is a system. So you can see we can zoom in and out on systems. They're of different sizes, they're interconnected. The world is brimming with systems. And the human-made systems are what we call social systems. So the American healthcare system made by human beings, not involving only human beings, right? Because we have supply chains and we have hospital buildings and we have equipment, but it's socially constructed. So the American healthcare system is a complex social system. And if you're in Canada or something, same with the Canadian healthcare system. 3 things that nurses need to know about systems. First, systems help. Believe it or not, they do. The fact that you're in nursing school right now and can take an exam and get a license to render care to patients is all thanks to systems. That's incredible. The fact that after school you can go and get a job in a hospital and get paid and someone is processing your paychecks and patients know where to find you to get help, all thanks to systems. And we know that systems also hinder. Our systems are obviously not perfect. No one in the year 2021 thinks that, right? When interrupted global supply chains mean that nurses don't have the adequate PPE they need to protect themselves during a global pandemic, that is a system failure. When you see your patient, and you will, readmitted to the hospital 10 times in a single month, that is a system failure. When you don't get a break in a 12-hour shift, that is a system failure. And the final thing we need to understand about systems is that they are not the enemy. As much as we tell ourselves they are, they're not, because systems don't have motivation. They don't have an agenda. They were made by humans who probably had and have an agenda, but they're a result of how we designed them. So we can't get mad at the systems themselves. They are what they are. And so if we look at them with objectivity, we can start to figure out how to change them. Okay, today's takeaway so far. Systems touch people's lives. As a nurse, you will be a part of such systems, whether you like it or not. And you have a responsibility to have a say in how systems touch people's lives. Okay, so I coach nurses in making systems change. And let me tell you, since the pandemic, change is not a hard sell for nurses and most nursing students because you're really clued into what's going on thanks to social media and the news, etc. And the reason why change isn't a hard sell anymore is because everything that's wrong with our society is made manifest in our patient struggles. Everything that's wrong with our society is made manifest in our patient struggles. So when I go to work as an ED supervisor, the problems that I encounter, I cannot ignore, and are evidence of what's broken in our multitude of systems that make up our world. And even if we can agree that 1, we need change, and 2, the change will look like this, making change isn't easy. And because change making isn't easy, we have a lot of feelings about it. But first, let's get into why making change isn't easy. There are 3 types of problems in the world: simple, complicated, and complex. Simple problems are like baking a cake. You have a list of ingredients, you have a list of directions, and if you follow those as written, conceivably, you should get the same product, unless I'm the one baking. All bets are off. 2, complicated systems. A complicated system is launching a rocket to the moon. Yeah, the math is hard. I can't do it. But if you get the right experts in the room, and if they're doing the right equations, they predictably will be able to send a rocket to the moon. And we've done it before, and we will do it again, and we know how. Well, we don't know how, but people know how. Complex problems are obviously the most complex. And an example is raising a human child. There are so many individuals and factors that go into rearing a child that a parent with the best of intentions and the best resources and they know the best practices, cannot reliably predict what the outcome of the child's childhood will be. My father is an identical twin. And so he and my uncle, same genes exactly, same family unit, same high school, went through many of the same familial experiences, turned out to be very different people. Raising a child is a complex problem. And so is the healthcare system. In my work with nurses, I have uncovered 4 main emotions that I see from them around change. The first is exasperation. Oh my God, how is this still a problem? Someone needs to do something about this. Burn it down. 2, anger and blame, which is a little bit different from exasperation because anger and blame has a focus. It's my manager's fault. It's my professor's fault. If they cared a little bit more, this would be easier. This wouldn't be a problem, etc. Overwhelm is, oh my God, there's so much wrong with the world and the situation that I don't even know where to start to participate in its healing. What could I ever do to help? And 4th is hopelessness. This unit's never going to change. This school's never going to change. This system's never going to change. Why try? And as valid as these feelings are, ultimately, they don't serve us. And so it's on us to recognize these feelings and then move through these feelings to realize our place in the healing of systems. I lead a group of healthcare professionals through a group program called the Changemakers Mastermind. And this is the hierarchy of change framework that I developed and use to lead that group. Before we can ever hope to change systems or change others, we have to look first at ourselves. How does the status quo of this system serve me? How am I benefiting from what's broken? How do I, as an actor within this system, perpetuate that which frustrates me, that which harms? And some people might worry that this is defeating. You're blaming yourself for things out of your control. But no, I say the opposite, actually. And I find the opposite in the people I work with. When you start with yourself, you take agency for your role in the system, and you start to conceive of possibilities of how you can change your behavior in order to change others, in order to change systems, to make meaningful change in your life and your career. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How to change yourself to become a more effective change agent. And I believe that we do this with systems thinking. All right, let me check the time here. Great. Systems thinking, according to Peter Senge, is a conceptual framework to make the patterns of our world clearer and to help us see how to change them effectively. I know I just said the words conceptual framework, but stay with me, okay? We're going to break it down. Systems thinking is 1, a body of knowledge, okay, what we know and understand. 2, a set of tools. Systems thinking is something we can take out into the world and apply. It's practical. And 3, it's a language. Okay, it helps us communicate with other people more efficiently. This is my easier to understand definition of systems thinking. It's a way of seeing, describing, and moving through the world. If we can see problems more clearly, if we can describe problems to other people in a way that they will understand, and if we can then take action to change systems more effectively, that is critical for changing systems. And that is why I'm so passionate about getting systems thinking into the hands of nurses, because I think that nurses have an incredible capacity to lead healthcare change alongside other healthcare professions. Systems thinking helps us see the gap between what the system is currently doing and what we want the system to do. And once we identify that creative tension, we can figure out what we need to do within the system to redesign it, to close the gap. Systems thinking is not about creating systems that only help and have no problems. Read it again. If I had a magic wand today and I waved it and I could redesign the American healthcare system however I wanted it to be, do you know what we would end up with? Another system that both helps and hinders. Now, since I'm getting a doctorate in healthcare design, I like to think that I could do a little bit of a better job than what we currently have. But it wouldn't be perfect. There would always be space for modulation, for change that's needed to get it from where it is to where we want it to be. And that's just the reality with social systems. There's always work to do. Systems thinkers know how to live in systems for a lifetime. That living in systems means removing barriers and putting more on the help side than on the hinder side. We also know that systems change is the work of generations. Nobody gets into systems change work for instant gratification. And if they do, they leave pretty quickly. Systems thinkers lift their heads up out of their own perspective to participate in the ongoing work of making better systems and not perfect systems. All right. So today, we're getting into the meat of what we're going to talk about. I will offer you 4 components or habits of the systems thinkers. The first is seeing the big picture. And we are going to watch a short video. And if the sound doesn't cross over perfectly, that's okay. It's just dramatic music, so we could even watch it on mute. Does anyone else have like goosebumps? That video gets me every time. Fun fact, I actually grew up just outside of Mountain View, California. So every time I watch that initial zoom out, I try to find my house. No luck yet, but I always try. Seeing the big picture is thinking widely to see beyond our part in a system. I have a family friend, Larry Mendoza, who helped write the computer program that runs the Hubble Space Telescope. His ability to conceive of the universe, incredible. My ability stops at about the sun. Then my head really starts to hurt. My partner is a computational chemist, and his ability to think on the small scale is out of this world. He can think in atomic particulars in a way that I will never be able to. Your focal depth is your ability to zoom in and out of systems. That's what that video is doing. And your focal depth, increasing that in either direction, and how quickly you're able to zoom in and out, enhances your ability to provide care to patients and to solve problems in general. If you think about the work of an acute care nurse, 1 minute they're at the bedside thinking on the cellular level as they're replacing someone's potassium. And then their phone rings, and the next minute they're thinking at the hospital system level. The bed's not clean on 2A, so we're going to have to delay the patient's transfer upstairs until we can call housekeeping and get them to come down. But they're busy with the ICU because this patient from, a Dyna crashed and they're being helicoptered in, and you're like, okay. So you go from the cellular to zoom out to the hospital system level. That's nursing. You're always thinking in systems. We use our focal depths to collect context that we need to solve problems. What is your focal depth? The second component of systems thinking is look below the surface. This is thinking deeply, not widely, like seeing a big picture, but thinking deeply about individual data, problems, and events. We recognize that we don't and we will not know it all. And yet still we lean into the details because the details matter. If you look at this iceberg, above the waterline, we see what's obvious to see. It's sticking out, can't miss it. But when you go beneath the waterline, you uncover so much more, that which is not easily seen. And here is where we uncover the deeper structures of systems. What is hidden from me? What is not easily visible? And so I ask you, how deep are you comfortable diving? The third component of systems thinking is that your perspective matters. You are part of the healthcare system, and we need you. We really need you right now. And I hear from a lot of nurses, oh, I'm just a nurse. I'm just a nurse. My least favorite phrase in the entire English language. I'm just a nurse. What could I ever do to make these systems better? we have this idea that if we just move up a position, we will have more agency to make change. But that isn't necessarily the case. If you look at this ladder, if you go one rung up the ladder, you're still on the same ladder. You're still facing the same scaffolding of constraints as the person at the top. You're just seeing it a bit differently. You're at a different point on the ladder. The greatest leverage that you have in a system is yourself, because you are the expert in your point of view. If you work as a public health nurse out in the community, you are the expert in the community nurse perspective. If you are a nursing student, you are the expert in the nursing student experience. Do not discount that. Do you recognize the value that you bring? Right now, without getting another degree or getting an A on a test, right now, do you see the value that you bring? And here, I'll pause and offer a note on overwhelm. Solving problems is not all on you, okay? I want to make that very clear, because when we talk about taking individual responsibility, sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, she's blaming me for all the problems. And that is not the case. Taking responsibility does not mean taking full responsibility for everything that's wrong. Changing yourself is making change. Remember that hierarchy we had in the front end? The individual self-work that we do is just as important as the community and systems work that we will do. And once we do that self-work, we can reemerge into the world ready to take part in the healing of systems. The final habit of systems thinking is, and so does everyone else's, as in everyone else's perspective also matters. We cannot operate in silos. I don't know if you do interprofessional education experiences in your nursing schools, but I hope you do, because we need interprofessional relationships and information sharing between departments to survive. Systems change is not a competition either. There is not going to be one hero nursing organization or nurse who's going to save the day, cure the healthcare system, everyone wins. No. We must have collaboration in order to seek the outcomes that we want to see. Diversity of perspective is the only way forward. Do you recognize the value of others? All right, now it's time for an activity. I put a link to a Google Doc in the chat, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I'm going to copy and paste that, because I think if you joined after I posted it, you can't see it. So I just put it in the chat. It's a link, just click the link. It'll take you to a Google Doc. Please go to the Google Doc and I'll show you what I want you to do. I want you to go to File. So here, let's see. File, make a copy, click, say okay, and it's going to pull up your own document for you to work within. And this is important because this is a personal profile that you're going to fill out and get to take with you. And if you try to edit the master copy, everyone will see your answers and you won't get it saved. So make sure you make a copy. Any questions about that? Okay, I'm going to give us 8 minutes to take the assessment. It is 20 questions long, after which you will see a scoring section, which is pretty self-explanatory, but please let me know if you have questions. And so you'll take the 20 questions, score the assessment, and then you'll get to the point where there's a graph. I want you to look at the graph and figure out where to plot yourself on the graph. And then we're going to come back together, okay? So we'll go till 3:12. Well, you are in Ohio, so 4:12. All right. And feel free to reach out if you're confused or have trouble accessing the link. All right, 3 more minutes. And if you're done, it might be helpful to put a thumbs up in the little reaction option so I can kind of keep track of where we're at. Okay, we'll take 1 more minute. Go ahead and wrap up your scoring. And the goal is to end at the graph. Kelly's done, awesome. Thanks for the thumbs up. And if you just joined, we are currently filling out a profile assessment, which will be made available in the recording, but you can follow along while we discuss our results. Okay, 8 minutes are up. Does anyone need a lot more time? All right, I'm moving forward then. Okie dokie. So at this point, I hope that you've taken the assessment, you've scored it, and you've identified which quadrant of the graph you fall into. I'm going to share my screen again here. So this is the graph, and you'll see you either fall into this quadrant, this one, or this one, and you may also fall on a line, which is fine. We're going to talk about what this all means here. Okay. So here we have a graph. On the x-axis, we have where you get your source of information. See the big picture or look beneath the surface. On the y-axis, I've done this wrong. I knew I would. Y-x, it's been a while since algebra. On the real x-axis, we have the source of influence. Your perspective matters, and so does everyone else's. Now, let me say up front, this is in the profile document, but this is not a fixed personality test to tell you who you are and what you have the capacity to be. It is an assessment to make you aware of your cognitive habits on 2 different systems thinking continuums so that you know where there's opportunity to develop further, to be a more effective systems thinker. Okay? So that being said, let me break down what each of these types mean. In your profile, there is much longer discussion about each type with specific recommendations for you. So please dig into that after our conversation today, but I'll give you the brief rundown. In the top left-hand corner, we've got the challenger. The challenger sees the big picture and honors their perspective. Now, to honor your own perspective does not mean that you're selfish or single-minded or anything like that. It means that you're deeply aware of who you know yourself to be and what you think is right. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? The challenger is somebody who usually challenges people and systems, asks a lot of questions, seeks to understand. I'm a challenger. The explorer to the right sees the big picture as well, values context, and also, alternatively, values the perspectives of others. An explorer is someone who is really good on a first date. They're really interested in your life. They're asking you a lot of questions. They want to understand what makes you tick and who you are and where you've been and what you think. The explorer is real fun at a party. The inspirer in the bottom right-hand corner. Google wants me to update my passwords. Oh well. The inspirer values the perspective of others, but is also deep into the details, looking beneath the surface. The inspirer is, I love an inspirer. My mom is an inspirer. The inspirer is somebody who can meet you, and after 20 minutes of knowing you, can tell you the best parts about who you are and what you do for the world. They're deeply in tune with other people's hopes and dreams, strengths and weaknesses, because they're good at looking deep, cutting to the core. The focuser in the bottom left-hand corner is also good at cutting to the core because they're in the details and look beneath the surface, but they value their perspective. They're in tune with their self and their own intuition. The focuser is the person in the meeting who can summarize the problem really, really well. Okay, with any habit, taken to the extreme, we find them to be unhelpful. So the challenger, right up here, when taken to the extreme, so if you plotted yourself right in the upper left-hand corner of this graph, you might identify with this. Extreme challengers tend to be reclusive philosophers. They're disengaged from community. They're heads up in the clouds, living in abstraction. They don't let other people into their internal process. The explorer at their most extreme is a yes man. They are so concerned with satisfying everyone else's opinions that they use seeking more context and more information as a strategy to avoid making a decision that may cause people distress. If you feel called out a little bit, it's okay. The inspirer at their most extreme is not very inspiring. This is the face of overwhelm. Because the inspirer is so in tune with the details of other people's lives, they experience incredible pain when other people go through something hard. Right now, inspirers whose cognitive habits lie over here are having a really hard time. The focuser, at their worst, is a micromanager. It's their way or the highway. They've got an opinion about everything you're doing, and they're going to share it with you with little regard for what your perspective might be. And they are deep into the details. They can't see the big picture. They have a focal depth issue. Now, if you fell somewhere in the middle on a line, there's nothing wrong with you. In fact, it might be a good thing. Because our goal to be systems thinkers is not to isolate on any part of this graph. Systems thinkers traverse the graph, pulling from the cognitive habits they need in any given situation, depending on the team, the problem, the context. If you fell on a line, you're that much closer to getting to this center point, which is the goal. Now, if you fell in a quadrant, that's okay. These are just your habits. Doesn't mean you don't have the capacity to be inspiring or to explore as needed, but just that's where you're most comfortable. It's like your comfort zone. So where is your edge for becoming a better systems thinker? How does this assessment help us? I call it the diagonal challenge. If you're an explorer, your challenge to become a more proficient systems thinker is to move towards the center. And what that looks like for the explorer is behaving more like a focuser. Explorers need to focus. Stop seeking context. Stop looking for more opinions. You've got that nailed down. You need to practice making decisions and taking action. For the challenger, it's the opposite. Oh, I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense. The focuser would be the opposite. The challenger needs to be more like the inspirer. The challenger, myself, I need to practice becoming more invested in the details of people's lives and perspectives. And helping people tune into my personal individual process so that they aren't confused. I'm not a mystery. I'm sharing with people how I come to different decisions, etc. And my hope for you is that this exercise is helpful, that regardless of if you fell perfectly into a quadrant or between two, you're able to take the information included later in the personal profile and come up with an action plan for how you can strengthen your non-dominant habits so that you too, not that I'm the most proficient systems thinker, I work on it every day, but so that you too have the tools that you need so that systems thinking might become a little bit more natural for you. And so that you feel like you can make more meaningful change in your life and the lives of other people. In the personal profile, you will see for each cognitive habit of systems thinking, there are a list of recommended actions you can take. I'd like you to choose one from each habit that you've identified as an area to grow and to commit to doing that this week or month. Write it down in your profile, make that commitment, and see how you feel. See how you grow, see how you're challenged. These are some options for see the big picture and look beneath the surface. And then these are some options for your perspective matters, and so does everyone else's. And these are high level, and in the personal profile, there are more granular actions that you can take. Alrighty. at this point, I'm available to take some questions if anybody has some, or comments, or if anyone wants to share what their type was.
I
That's
can
okay.
start with sharing.
You what?
I can start with sharing, I guess. The type that I got was in the upper left quadrant too. The coordinates were -2 on the x-axis and then +2 on the y-axis.
Okay. So you're pretty close to the center, it sounds like.
Hopefully. I mean, yeah.
Let's see.
As far as the scale goes, I guess so.
Yeah. So you're like right here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Very, very cool. I take it maybe this concept of systems thinking may not be new to you.
Yeah, there is this really great podcast I found a while back called Personality Hacker that has some really great discussions on systems thinking. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for the recommendation. I've never heard of that, and I'm obsessed with podcasts. So it's
awesome.
List. Personality hacks, you said?
Personality Hacker. Yeah.
Hacker. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a couple of episodes with systems thinking in the title and everything.
Cool. Gotta check it out.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together.
My pleasure. How can I help? You can ask me a question about anything you like. I think we have some internally focused people here in the group today. Alrighty. Well, I will share one last slide with you. It is ways that if you enjoyed our conversation today, we can stay connected and you can kind of learn more about the work that I do and systems thinking in general. Obviously, check out Personality Hacker. But if you're looking for more resources on systems thinking in nursing or healthcare specifically, you can visit my website, nursingthesystem.com. I work with nurses frequently, one-on-one, to talk about all kinds of ways that they can apply systems thinking to their career and their lives. So if you have any interest in doing that, you can always shoot me an email and you can find that at my website. If you're interested in a hands-on, in-depth group experience with systems change, this conversation is basically module 1 of my Changemakers Mastermind group, kind of condensed down. So this is the start of our journey as a group, and that's been a lot of fun, and that will open up again in 2022. So for now, you can join the waitlist if you so choose. And then for full fun daily education around systems thinking and change making, you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm a little more active on Instagram. I prefer that platform, but I'm at nursing.the.system, and I'd love to see you on there. If you at any point have feedback for me about this talk today or any questions about systems thinking in general, I really, really value engaging with nursing students and new nurses, because I think the earlier that we can introduce nurses to this concept of systems thinking and the importance of making systems change, the better. So I'm always willing to have a conversation to connect and just figure out how I can help. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you being here with me. And I hope to hear from you. Kelly says, thank you, Kelly. You're very welcome. Thank you for being here. And sorry to call you guys out for participation. All right, I think we can stop recording, whoever's in charge of that.